Why shouldn't we talk about politics or religion or? But what if we wanted to? Thai version, November 13th, 23. English version, March 23rd, 24. Buddhist Principles and Psychology by Beee Boy. Episode 15e. When Bee first finished this in Thai version, Bee was just curious anyone has done this. And tried searching in YouTube to see if someone has already mentioned any guidelines or solutions to this age-old discussion. To Bee's surprise, there's none that can be considered comprehensive, or give detailed instructions of how to do so. Most of them touches upon few do's and don'ts here and there, but not the whole picture of this controversial discussion. Not even mentioning its dynamic that can potentially lead to conflict if not carry out the debate properly. So Bee hopes that once you've finished this program you have the complete picture of what it is, meaning the discussion about something conflicting in nature, and some clear guidelines on how to proceed, if and when you decide to enter into such a discussion. Now let's start. If you want to talk about this, what must you do? Actually, it can be discussed or talked about. If you can do it according to the principles listed later in this program, ha ha ha. This sort of conversation is something people often warn us to avoid, like politics, religion, abortion, gun control, etc. But before going to the how to discuss such hot topics successfully, there are 2 to 3 no's KNOW that we should be aware of before we proceed, or decide to do whatever it is. It is a basic principle that Bee thinks is quite universal. Know what you are going to do. What is it that you are going to do? Or do you know what you're doing or saying, etc.? For example, knowing that climbing onto the roof to repair a leak by yourself is risky, or that the thing being discussed is precarious, or negotiating a purchase, etc. Know yourself. Know what kind of a person you are. What is your strength, weakness, prejudice, like, dislike, beliefs, temperament, etc. Know are you sure you wanted to climb up that roof? Aren't you too heavy for that old roof? Etc. How to know yourself will be discussed at length in this episode. If what you're going to do doesn't involve other third or fourth or more party, then these 2 no's are sufficient. But if it is related to other people, then there will be the third no. Know them. Know what kind of people you're going to be interacting with. So what strategies should we use when talking? Or negotiate with them? If it's someone we know, it's a little easier as we know each other's way around. But if it's a stranger, you must try to have a conversation. Notice their response. Can you classify their traits or characteristics or not? The person we are talking or bargaining with. What kind of personality they are. In term of Buddhist classification, like the 6 traits or the 3 lotus types, so you know how to deal with them. For example, if you are negotiating to buy something from a vendor, after enough chit-chat for you to guesstimate that person whether she's a sweet-mouthed vendor or a mischievous seller or a kind-hearted merchant or a trickster, etc., you will be able to negotiate with appropriate strategies. If you're aware of principles of these 2 or 3 no's, it's like sort of know what you're doing when you're doing it. Even if it was a misjudgment of the situation, causing you to fall through the roof and hurt yourself, well, at least you think before you climbed. It'll give you a lesson to work on your estimation skill next time. So not to miscalculate again, haha. Alright, let's get into it. Why shouldn't people talk about politics or religion? Should we play games again? Well, just play. Okay, let's try to guess. Why do people often warn that we shouldn't discuss religion or politics? Well, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, tick-tock tick-tock tick-tock, let's start. For those who watch the clip, please pause playing this clip first. Then come look at it after you've finished trying the activity or answering the questions. As for those who read from books or from the web page, stop reading for a moment and do the activity first. Oh, my time's up. How are you? Have you gotten the answer yet? How are you? There must be a variety of reasons. Interesting answers. Why shouldn't people talk about politics or religion? The reason lies in principles 2 or 3 no's. You know the first one. So let's get to the first principle. Know what you're going to do. In this case, know what you're going to talk about. This type of subject on politics, religions, abortion, gun control, etc., whatever they are, they have the following unique but common characteristics. 1. Identity challenging property. When talking about these things, it's a challenge. Challenge to what? Challenge to each individual's identity. The individuality of each person is said to never be easy to compromise. Because if you agree with the other's POV or point of view, or Bee's opinions on whatever things you've believed all your life. It's going to shake if not shatter who you are as a person. You probably think to yourself, it can't be. How come I was wrong in this guy, or whoever the hell he is, this Bee guy? How come he's right? This isn't right. And on and on. You would feel what you believed all along isn't what you've always adhered to? It will make you or that person distraught and shaken like jelly. It's a mess. That person or you must do something to create peace and confidence in what you originally believed. Or will you choose to believe something new that the other guy just presented it to you, which may be completely opposite to your original belief? Otherwise, you will become irritated and confused, which is a symptom of cognitive dissonance or the mental discomfort that results from holding two conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes. That is, if you don't change your beliefs to those of the opposite side. In order for the mind to not be confused and shaken, it is necessary to find reasons to support it. Their original beliefs that were acceptable, or justification, as in the case of the followers of the Seeker's cult. See the link below. End of Days Cults, the Day After Cognitive Dissonance, video essay. Therefore, when discussing these type of subject contents, we have to be aware the possibility of hostile disagreement, since it is challenging who we are, for both you and the other involved participants. Thus, we should consider whether we can control this debating game or not. Don't just hope that the other side can control to keep the talk on its track. And how many people have you met in your life who is willing to listen to other people's opinions? That person listens carefully until they understand you completely. Have you ever met such a person? If you meet that one person, you are considered very lucky to have met him or her. Congratulations. Because talking about these things, it is a matter of overcoming ideas and beliefs. It is a matter of challenging each person's ego and identity. If we don't have the skills to manage these difficult conversations, it is recommended that you don't talk or discuss the matter for a long time. If you begin to see signs of irritation or anger on the other side, it is better to change the subject or cease that conversation. 2. Unclear conclusion. If you observe carefully, you will see that all of the stories that can cause conflict often arises from the presence of multiple interpretations, many side opinions, who disagree with each other, which means that the matter has multiple possible solutions or can be interpreted in many different ways. That is, it's not as clear-cut. As white and black, it will be something like sort of grayish. No single conclusion or a solution to the problem or issue at hand. It can be done in many ways, solved by many methods. Therefore, when encountering a situation where the subject is being discussed, or are discussing or are in conflict with each other, participants in the group should have the awareness that there isn't just one way to solve a problem. Opinions from all sides, all parties, can solve the problems. All conflicts can be reduced. The difference is in the efficiency of those approaches from various parties. After understanding this principle, what you should do is try to bring the two or multiple sides together to present a solution to the problem that is satisfactory to all sides, rather than trying to let one side win. If one tries to do that, it's just like trying to tell gray to become black or turn to white. It's impossible, right? When it's gray, it means it has some black parts mixed with white. If it's a light gray, it's probably a good idea to use more white solutions. If it's darker gray, it might mean using more black solutions. But use both color solutions, it will be effective. You must combine methods from both or multiple parties to help solve the problem collectively. Now, if we are eager to talk about these subject matters, or on a good or bad day, someone else comes along and drag us into discussing something like this, what should we do? Then we come to principles No. 2 and 3 to know in the next part. No. Be know yourself. To know yourself in various aspects, you should start by evaluating yourself, knowing your own strengths, weaknesses, blind spots, prejudice, like, dislike, temperament, etc. First, that is, in our interactions with other people, things that we can control to some degree, or almost all of them, are ourselves. As for the other party, we have no way to control them in any manner, or wanting them to behave and conduct themselves as we please. It is not possible unless we have a high level of strategy, or know the mental agenda of others. Just like the Buddha, mostly only our principles and reasoning can convince them to follow us to some extent. We'll learn those principles later in this program. There are multiple ways to define who or what type of personality we are. But we will stick to the Lord Buddha's model of 6 traits as in the followings as a guide to understand ourselves. 1. What is our demeanor or temperament? This is a basic principle that can be used in almost every case. what kind of person we are. In Buddhism, there are 6 demeanor or traits model. 1.1, Raka Jarrett, lustful or emotional demeanor. Love of beauty, good personality, good demeanor, soft, melodious voice, addicted to beauty, fragrance, melodiousness, deliciousness. Does not like to think, but is imaginative and dreamy. 1.2, Tosa Jarrett, touchy or hot-tempered demeanor. Irritated mind, easily angered, expecting the world to be as it is. Speaks frankly, likes to point out right and wrong. Is methodical, strict on rules, dresses neatly and cleanly. Walk quickly and firmly. 1.3, Moha Jarrett, delusional or ignorant demeanor. Lonely, ignorant, lethargic, drowsy, bored. Eyes look sad and touching. Speak softly, gentle, smile easily. Rarely in a bad mood. Rarely angry at anyone. Don't like to socialize. Don't like to be the center of attention and walk aimlessly. Lack of commitment. 1.4, Sattva Jarrett, blind faith demeanor. Having a grateful, joyful mind, easily humbly accepts firmly holding on to a person. Principles or beliefs. Repeat thinking and saying what they believe and believe in. Think of themselves as a good, trustworthy, and more noble person than others. 1.5. Vitak Jarrett, anxious or paranoid demeanor. Distracted thinking, talky thoughts flowed and wandered. Live in the world of fantasy, not the real world. Pessimistic view of the world that other people will take advantage of them and bully them. Face will be sullen, rarely smile, bossy and have a big ego. Think they're smart. Want to know everything, procrastinator. 1.6, Buddhi Jarrett, intelligent demeanor. Thinker always thinking about something logically. Look at things according to reality. Not embellished, ready to accept ideas that are different from their own. Eager to learn, observant, compassionate and not taking advantage of people. The face is bright and the eyes are sparkling, not distressed. Read more by following the link below. But these are in Thai though. Bee doesn't want to explain much about the 6 traits of demeanor, because it is content that could be written into a book. But Bee will leave you with a rough principle, which is that most people will be a hybrid of the various demeanors above. No one is only one type of demeanor, like people who get angry easily. He or she may have other demeanor. Like Buddhist Jarrett too is hot-tempered, but at the same time, know, think, analyze, differentiate. And also like a little bit of pretty things. Or a mixture of sensuality. But mainly a person who gets angry easily as his or her basic demeanor. Let's just say that we're talking about the demeanor that closely related to controversial content at this point, like anger demeanor. Or people who get angry easily and those people with blind faith. That is, if you came across those type of people, try to avoid talking or having conversations about topics that appear to be a bit of a gray area. Because you will never know yourself being pulled into the inner circle of a boxing match. With thoughts and emotions on the stage of that conflict. Until when you realize that you just punched or hurt the other person with your sharp tongue. Or you may feel that something is violently hitting your face. By then it was already too late. Unless you behave according to Bee's guidelines. Presented below. And until you've mastered it, you will be able to talk about gray subject matters. With anyone, ha ha ha. The reason Bee laughs is because Bee wants to ridicule you. Probably you can't do it. Because it goes against your nature. Normally, if you, who are of angry or blind faith demeanors type, are normally not aware of what type of person you are when you get angry or just being ignorant, correct? However, if you were aware of your personality trait, then you would be able to stop yourself from getting angry or being ignorant, right? Ha ha ha. A little off topic. That is, if you read or listen to Bee's comments in various articles, it will be noted that Bee does not write to please the readers and listeners. What you believe or not believe, what you like or dislike regarding Bee's opinion do not have an effect on Bee. Or you get annoyed and angry and want to make a big tirade against Bee. It's up to you. It is your business. If you curse Bee or whomever, you will get the result of your karma. If you have read or listened to and not using something useful is your own karma. Just keep enjoy dancing in this endless cycle of life until eternity. But if you are a Buddhist-minded person, who knows how to think, analyze, and discern, Bee probably don't have to do anything either. Because you know how to use useful information to enrich your life. Reach your spiritual goals. The parts that are bad or that you don't agree with, you just let it pass, ignoring it, that's it. You won't waste your valuable time sitting here. Criticize or insult Bee's opinion. Because that is just not you. I repeat it again. Read or listen or watch something to understand, think, analyze, distinguish often, and then ask yourself, after I wasted my time on this, how can I take advantage of what I've just read, listened to, and watched from this media? Instead of wasting time and emotionally cursing others? If you think and do something like this, Bee would like to congratulate you as well. If you can't do it and still feel angry, just go ahead and be so. Some of you have read or listened to this point. Will feel irritated. Why doesn't Bee encourage each other? This is not the matter of support each other. Or not. As Bee wrote at length in the episode. Emotional freedom, take responsibility for your own feelings. Self-reliance, psychology, and Dhamma in practice. You should be responsible for your own feeling or emotion. Or is it possible to stand on your feet first before going out and do anything in your life? Otherwise, you will keep on blaming this or that person. Blame this and that thing for whatever misfortune comes your way. Or when you feel bad about anything, as for the comment, why doesn't Bee give encouragement? Bee's answer is, since when does Bee have the duty to encourage anyone? So why don't you ask yourself, why am I a person without encouragement? And where can I go to buy one? And if you can find the answer, then you will begin to understand and take responsibility for your own emotions. That encouragement, it comes from your own mind, from within you. Bee hope you get this. Another important issue is following Bee's guidelines. Listed now. It's not easy. If you still worry and being frustrated because of reading or listening to something that doesn't sound right to you, then it is game over. Don't expect to develop or improve anything further in this life. Just find only happiness, avoid suffering, and continue to live like most ordinary people. There is some exception though, and that is you are under 18 years of age. Or are still under the care of parents. If that's the case, Bee will give you all the encouragement and help you need, with advice that you will choose to listen to or not. It's up to you. Because you are still of legal age, determined to be a minor, who still needs someone's guidances and is still in the learning phase of life. But if you are still young and in your youth but are mentally maturity more than some adults, Bee would like to ask for advice and some encouragement from you too. Check out Josh Blue's comedy show following the link below. Josh is a disabled person but has great stand-up comedy abilities. Bee saw his program and it was hilarious. Bee liked what he said. Sometimes many people meet him and compliment him, saying that even though he is disabled, he's able to travel the world. He is a person who gives inspiration to others. Really great. And he replied, thank you very much for saying that. But I have to tell you, I don't feel inspired by you at all. Because you're normal and don't have any problems. But you don't do anything. That is, if you don't have any disability and feel down. Just take a look at Josh Blue's example as an inspiration. Drybar double feature, Josh Blue, around 39:50. Also, the simplest thing you can do is try to follow the review questions to identify a self at the end of every episode below. Now, come back to the story after blah 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 for so long, ha ha ha. The fact that we know ourselves, it will cause us to be more careful in advance. Do not easily fall into the trap of defilements such as anger. Because anger is easy to feel, but difficult to remedy or halt. When it happens, angry people usually have one clear characteristic. What is it? That is, to forget oneself. Be unconscious. And then use those strong emotions to fight back, whether through verbal or physical actions. 2. How good can we accept insults or scolding or cursing from others? When we know what kind of person we are by nature, we have to evaluate further that when we talk about matters that can easily arouse anger like this, it will escalate into a big verbal or even escalate to physical fight. The verbal karma is cursing each other or crossing the line to the point of using force. What we have to look beyond shock is how will we handle insults. Is it as much as a fraction of the Lord Buddha? Which will be discussed next. Therefore, you have to know what type of person you are. Easily angered, short fuse, often blown fuse or not. A bit of this makes you moody, a bit of that makes you angry. If you've met these people, you probably feel it's really a drag encountering these people. But these are ordinary people. What about ordinary people? When ordinary people are scolded, they feel they've lost face. Do you feel like you've lost face? Losing face is also a cause. Creating dissatisfaction. What if you're not satisfied? Dissatisfaction is also a cause that need to be satisfied. Need to be satisfied is a cause for responding or making excuses for defending oneself. And in order to support one's anger, that there is reasonable cause to be angry or self-justification to retaliate. How do you respond? Retaliation is a cause leading to quarrels. What happened when people start quarreling? Quarrel is the cause leading to escalation. Escalation was a cause in some loss, whether it is a friendship, injuries, or worst, life. In the final outcome where the fighting stopped. What about when the fighting stopped? Fighting stop is a cause, resulting in the ruin of the fight, caused by the one who stupidly started it because of their ordinary people's anger. For some who didn't notice, the above process is presented in the way the Lord Buddha's teaching about Iddhipākkhayāta rule of cause and effects. Ordinary people won't be able to do or imagine how the Lord Buddha did, encountering extremely rude people, or idiot who came to scold him. In one of those days, there were Brahmin who was angry at his wife, because his wife was so fond of the teachings of the Buddha. He was annoyed and upset with his wife, but what did this Brahmin do? Instead of cursing his own wife, he said, "Good, now I'm going to go curse the Buddha. What is this idiot going to do?" He was angry at his wife but going out to scold other people. So he became angry and went to see the Buddha. When he got there, he shouted and cursed, using rude phrased and harsh language he could think of. Spitting, cursing for a long time. After a long while, this Brahmin got tired and exhausted from scolding and cursing. Don't know what to curse anymore. Now Beee is getting sidetracked again, ha ha ha. This was just a few weeks ago. By the time of this writing is done is probably 6 months ago, around mid-2023, haha. Beee came to notice something. There has been an, how should we call it, unfortunate or pathetic or pitiful or whatever that's not uplifting phenomenon that has been occurring in Thai political scene for a while. That some groups of people came out and express opposition to anything that is different from them, by cursing obscene words at every opposition in sight. It's not that difficult to understand these people who are driving society by cursing at others, because they don't know any better. They are unable to lead society in the direction they want through other, more intelligent methods. So they just use a simple, basic method that doesn't require learning or any education to do this. Like people who were not brought up properly with education and loving family, using their raw emotions as the only things they know how. To dig up vulgar words to insult and use violence to intimidate other people to submission. The followings are some of Bee's observations. 2.1 These people think that their insults and violence are the strategies that will cause the opposition to agree with them? No? Don't have to answer that. It's already so obvious. 2.2 Vulgar words that are used to insult other people. Let's take a look at this. Usually in Thai they use the type of animal like a reptile, or four-legged animals as name-calling to insult and scold other people in anger. In fact, those animals' names, when used during normal conversation, most of them conjure a feeling of cute and trustworthiness, that people all over the world praise it as a man-best friend, such as dogs. Now, when it's used to scold someone that they are dog, Beee feels it isn't that bad, haha. However, it's the context being used which at a proper moment in time, it's probably hurtful, and can cause a burning pain to someone feeling, of course. All these curse words from the animal kingdom have different sting to them. Start from a four-legged animal, like a dog, with its long mouth. Its equivalent in the English word is bitch or sob, and after calling this name and that opponent still chill, then they escalate to a reptile like monitor lizard. Beee knows you probably don't get it why you should be angry when someone call you a lizard. There's no similar word in English, but in Thai it's a slightly worse curse word than the dog, and if they wanted to go ever further now, they will arrive at the most common obscene cursing verb or action word agreed all over the world if you know what Beee means. This is the ultimate cursing, when scumbags scold each other. It's something like that action word then followed by the word your mother, or a variation of this combo. Mother then action, or go then ... action word then your mother, etc. Any combination of your mother and this action word they can think of at the time. Beee guesses any reference to your beloved parent, especially mother, in an unfavorable position or circumstance isn't acceptable to most people, despite how much you guys respect and love your elderly.
Beee has seen some of the comics, quite a lot actually, that has issues with their parent equally so with parents complain about their child. They curse parents on their shows. It doesn't mean that all Westerner lose respect for the elderly, only a tiny percent still have some respect for them, a very tiny percent. But it seems to be that the attitude towards the olds is obsolescence, and not worth keeping. Which is different from the East, especially the Asian people that most of them still respect and feels in debts to them for their upbringing. But soon all that is going to change, following the Western culture. As the new generation, The millennium seems to develop the same attitude towards the old as the West. Pretty soon we probably be ahead of you.
Bee was babbling quite a bit above just to illustrate that. The sting in using that action verb against the mother is more severe and hurtful to us, Asian, than the Westerner. And yet it's like a consensus that everyone around the world seems to deem that this action verb is the ultimate of cursing, somehow. 2.3 Better get back to the point Bee's trying to make. And that is, if the person who curses uses the curse word that hurts the most. That is a word that people all over the world, every nation, every language agree on. That is the most insulting word ever. Is a description of the behavior male and female humans procreate. To be the most vulgar word, isn't this strange? It's strange. In the sense that the whole world, whether white, black, yellow, red, orange, they all agreed that this manner of reproduction move is the strongest insult. Without having to schedule a meeting to vote. It's unanimous. Be guessed that it is some sort of quality of human beings, who do not discriminate by race, caste, or skin color, to agree that this behavior is the culmination of insults. Strange but true. It indicates something deep in the human psyche. Interesting, huh? No other human move, gesture, action, or whatever come close to this move. We tend to use human dirty discretion or its related organ for cursing. Like shit or dick or pussy, etc. In a not favorably light. Which led me to theorize some insight here that anything that is private or dirty in the human body are used as an verbal attack tool against another human or thing or unfortunate event happen to them. Because when you grow through all the grotesque or repulsive human gestures or movements, for example, vomiting, taking a dump, etc., this procreation act seems the most suitable one, not because of its usage of human private part, but not the ordinary gesture. Rhythmic action itself also uniquely suggest or enhance its sting as the ultimate cursing word or phrases. And most people use it when they are at the extreme emotional stage too. And that is beyond anger by many yards. Now what is Bee's point? The point is, when a person heard this ultimate cursing words for the first or second time, he might start to get angry. His face is becoming more red due to the blood rushes to his face. Instead of rushing to the appropriate organ according to the procreating move cursing word suggested. What Bee wanted you to try is this. Next time you're in such the situation, just try to keep calm. Let that low-life long-mouthed being goes at it with their cursing. Bee will explain the adjective long-mouthed later, haha. They might start alternating between four-legged animals breeding behavior. Some animals, some reptiles. Or four-legged animals interact with reptiles. Or some reptiles and humans, etc. Let them do their act. Let's see how long can they last. Probably less than 5 minutes. They will start circle back to the same cursing words. What you should see is a repetitive pattern that goes on and on. But nowhere. Because they don't know what else to add to the insult. That's it really. You may encourage them, like, is that the worst you can do? Or that's it, is that it, anything else? Believe Bee, the type of person they are. They won't be able to come up with anything creatively to curse you. More than those regular words. They don't have the wisdom to dig up insults that aren't more repetitive or hurtful than this. It's just that unfortunate things happened when someone punched or killed the other. Because those people didn't have the patience to wait for that barking one to get tired of cursing and shutting up by themselves. Now just imagine you walking mind your own business on the sidewalk. And all of a sudden a dog ran towards you behind the fence of one of the house that you're passing. And start barking at you violently. At first you might get startled a bit, but once you see that it's a dog, it might bark several more times. What do most people with no brain injury do? They just ignore the dog and keep walking along, right? If anyone start barking back at the dog, please don't contact Bee, keep your opinion to yourself. That's why Bee used the long-mouthed description earlier. Just think of those cursing at you with repulsive vulgar words as dogs barking. You might get annoyed by those dogs, but you wouldn't get angry with them, right? It's the same thing with these people who attack you verbally. Just treat them as long foul-mouthed animal barking at you. Unless they start to bite you. Well, that's different than you do whatever is necessary at the moment. Bee suggests run. So just like that, when people cursing us using the one they think it's the worst, the strongest. In the end, it's just that, words. Not stick or stone. After listening to it 3 or 4 times, well, what are you going to say to those dogs? Keep barking. By the time it reached the 10th time or even 20th. Bee hate to say that you'll probably get used to them. But those lose their stings at about the third or the fourth repetition. You're probably getting more annoyed than angry. It's not going to be as bad as the first time when that long-mouthed people started cursing. In essence, if you can perceive it as what the Lord Buddha taught us, and that it's just sound from their mouths, vibrating through the air and reaching our ears. It is really just that. We give them weight, punch, sting, etc. by our own thinking, just like what Bill wrote in Hamlet. Nothing is neither good nor bad, but thinking make it so. Beee hopes you're able to see it from this perspective, that it is up to you who prepare it. Cook it until it's spicy, that it hurts you getting your ears puffed out. Break your patience and suddenly bursting out with anger. If you stay calm, let them curse for a while. You will get used to it. And then you'll feel more annoyed than angry, as Beee has mentioned. If you looked at it carefully, you can see that it's not the cursing words that have an effect on you. It's not the person who says those repulsive words. It hurts because we cooked it ourselves. When someone attacks physically, you're hurt because of the human biology, in which you can't do anything about that, unless you're born with disabled pain receptor. It's similar to verbal attack, which can cause you to feel pain and hurt. However, the difference is that you can alter that verbal attack result, so that you won't feel so much hurt by it, whereby you can't do the same with the physical pain. One of the technique in doing that Beee has mentioned in the previous paragraph is the proper training of your mind with the understanding of the Lord Buddha's teaching about self. If there's no self, then there's nobody to feel hurt or pain from that verbal attack. Let go of the self is the subject for another whole book altogether, and a very difficult practice to go through and achieve. So Beee won't go into detail, and it's beyond the scope of this program. However, Beee encourages you to get more information about this subject, which will not only benefit you in this life but beyond. Now let's get back to the Brahmins who stood there, shouted harsh insults at the Buddha, until he finally exhausted and got nothing more to scream. The Buddha then asked, "Brahmin, have you ever had relatives or friends come to visit you?" The Brahmin was annoyed and thought that the Lord Buddha had realized that no one wanted to associate with him. The Brahmin replied back saying, "Yes, why not?" He further asked, "Then have you brought food, sweets, and drinks as welcome offerings to those friends, relatives of yours?" The Brahmin heard this and became annoyed again, thinking that the Lord Buddha had accused him of being inconsiderate or have no manners. He replied, "Of course I brought foods and drinks to welcome them." He further asked, "What if those guests, friends, and relatives don't eat or take you offerings? Those things you bring out to welcome them. Whose food and drink would it be?" The Brahmin felt proud. "Oh, what a stupid question like this," he said. "They're still mine, of course, silly you." The Buddha then explained to the Brahmin, "Likewise, Brahmin, your cursing is like food that were brought to offer me. But I did not accept those, so those cursing and scoldings are still belong to you as before." Once the Brahmin heard this, he felt astonished and speechless. "Wow! This is deep. Very, very deep, man. Still don't have any comeback. And yet deeply understand the depth of the Buddha's teachings in this comparison."
Fortunately, this Brahmin wasn't that stupid, and realized that he just met the real man, the real-life master of masters. He felt that he ran into someone he didn't know, who was rudely scolded by him. And not only this master wasn't angry but is full of mercy, enlightened him with his teaching of deep principle as well. Finally, this Brahmin felt repented and decided to become ordained as another disciple of the Lord Buddha. You can read more about the original text of the sutra at the link below. However, it's in Thai. When Beee came across this tale in the book, The Happiness Equation by Neil Pusracha, about 5 or 6 years ago, Beee was amazed at the principles the Lord Buddha used, fighting against those who cursed him. Beee still confused and does not quite understand it thoroughly. How will it be used and practiced later on? One thing Beee believe is that if you know what to do but never practice doing so, that knowledge is useless. Therefore you need as much practice as possible to achieve what you know. And one day Beee hopes that Beee can get to that stage. And since Bee's knowledge of Dhamma or the Lord Buddha's teaching is at the pre-kindergarten level, Beee think that day is quite a long way away. 3. Self-control. Your ability to control yourself. When there are 2 or more people discussing about gray subject matter, among which characteristics of people who are debating with each other, do you think or feel that this behavior is more likely to be heard from the others? Oh, it's time to play the game again. Okay, let's try to guess. What kind of expression or characteristic that is more likely to win over others, or that others will listen? Well, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, let's start. For those who watch the clip, please pause playing this clip first. Then come look at it after you've finished trying the activity or answering the questions. As for those who read from books or from the web page, stop reading for a moment and do the activity first. Oh, my time's up. How are you? Have you gotten the answer yet? Did you guess correctly? What kind of expression or characteristic that is more likely to win over others or that others will listen? The answer is, it's the one who can project control of their own emotions and expressions, so they don't look like they're losing their minds. The person who can keep calm and collected, respond in a normal tone of voice, never show irritation or impatience, not to mention burst into anger when encountering some opposing idea or accusation. Not only that, he or she still managed to add humor to the other side point of view, or their attacking reasoning. You will get point on this, not to mention scoring point from the audiences or debate judges. Therefore, in every discussion about conflicting matters, in beliefs and thoughts, one thing that must not be shown is that you're losing control and go mental on some argument expressed by your opponents. This is very no thing to do, since once the audiences start to detect that you're losing it, you've already lost the fight. Don't let your voice gradually become louder and louder until it became yelling, which means it's over. Do observe body language and demeanors from some previous political debate in the past, such as the cases of Nixon and Kennedy, etc. In other words, you have to keep your cool. Don't ever lose it. Try observing ordinary people, informal arguing with each other. The obvious behaviors or symptoms are probably something like these. 3.1 The sound is starting to get louder. The more they argue, the sound is getting louder and louder, until it's like they're starting to yell at each other. From the clash of their ideas, there will start to be some insults popping out here and there. It's looking like an emotional clash, rather than the idea clash now. 3.2 Start interrupting or countering the other person, without waiting for the other to finish speaking or expressing their opinion first. 3.3 Start referring to unrelated personal matters into the argument. Now some of them might start to deviate from the content, and instead getting personal by attacking or cursing the appearance or behavior of the opponent. For example, it's because you failed the exam. Or are you stupid? Or you drive a Japanese car? Or has a face like a gecko, etc. For some who notice this childish behavior will wonder, what does those things mentioned have anything to do with the subject of the debate? 3.4 No one is listening to anyone anymore. After arguing for a while, both sides will talk over the other. Everyone wants to present their own excellent reasons, forgetting that opposition is also not listening to them either. 3.5 Starting to use unreasoning anecdotes or observation as valid argument. The above symptoms are quite easy to see. You don't have to be a keen observer to spot them. But when each side start using irrational reasons or fallacy, such as, "Hey, I've been working here for almost 10 years. Don't argue with me or believe me. I know this very well." Or, "My father has been a smoker since he was a child. Now he's 89. I don't see any problem with it." Or, "Do you see that if we have free food for our employees, like that big search company, our company will be a world class in no time?" Or, "Don't you see that there are many national ceremonies using that religious procedures? And how can you say that it is inappropriate, etc.? This one is a bit difficult. If you do not pose yourself as an honorary referee, you will soon fall into this fallacy trap also, accidentally dug by the other side's ignorance. 3.6 Begins to show signs of anger, with a serious expression, hands raised, fighting gestures, etc. Something like, "I don't know how to win the argument, but not the fight. I have to win somehow." There are other symptoms, but Beee thinks that the symptoms mentioned above are easily observable. It should be enough of an indicator to warn that this discussion is about to escalate. It has the tendency to get out of control from an argument into a fight, if no one is doing anything to prevent it. This is the time for someone to take control of the game, reverting the direction of this debate back to its original track again. 4. Principles of conversation to avoid conflict. If you want or are dragged into talking or discussion, or debate about gray subject matter, you need to know the principles in this section, and be mindful enough to use it while the debate's ongoing. Principles in this section are mainly from the books. Difficult Conversations by Sheila Heen, Bruce Patton, Douglas Stone, which Bee thinks it is the best books in the material world. The concepts and techniques in this book, when used appropriately, can reduce conflict at every level if people use it in real life. And if you are in a situation of talking about gray subject matters that is about to boil over, you should take this opportunity by immediately applying the principles from this book. Because the content of this book is quite extensive, Bee will summarize the main points to make it easier to follow. 4.1. What is the purpose of a conversation? The purpose of talking, whatever subject it may be, is to understand point of views of our talking partners. So it's a learning conversation. We converse to learn what the other have to say. What's their intention, feeling, purposes, etc. The problem with most people's conversations is they often don't understand the other's point of view, which comes from our nature, who always wants to present our own ideas and opinions that we feel are better than the other parties, and don't like to listen and understand the opposing point of view. This causes misunderstandings that eventually led to conflict. Therefore, we must always remember that when we talk about matters of substance, we talk in order to understand the other side point of views, is the first goal. Because if we don't have this principle in our hearts, we won't listen to others. As a result, others won't listen to us either. When people don't listen to each other, you can probably guess the outcome of that conversation, what it will be like. 4.2 Necessary skills for talking. Knowing that we should talk to understand others. How does it work? Oh, it's time to play the game again. Okay, let's try to guess. What are the most important skills in order to talk so that we can understand others? This question shouldn't be difficult. Hee hee. Well, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, tick-tock, 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 let's start. For those who watch the clip, please pause playing this clip first. Then come look at it after you've finished trying the activity or answering the questions. As for those who read from books or from the web page, stop reading for a moment and do the activity first. Oh, my time's up. How are you? Have you gotten the answer yet? How are you? Did you guess correctly? What are the most important skills in order to talk so that we can understand others? Answer: there are many skills to achieve this. But one of the most important skills in order to understand other people's points of view is listening. Listen carefully. That's right, listening. Every one of you may feel that Bee is saying nonsense. Such a simple thing to do. Of course, everyone can hear if they're not deaf. But that doesn't mean everyone is listening. Because listening need an active ingredient. And that is mindfulness. Mindfulness again. Being mindful is the superhero for self-development in every aspects of one's life. If you take a look at whatever tasks or goals you wanted to achieve in life, and ask yourself, can you achieve this without being focused or mindful of what you're doing? If you find one, don't let Bee knows, you've mistaken, haha. Look again. Most people hear but do not listen, meaning that most people know that there is sound coming into their ears, but they don't really understand, because at that time they were thinking about that and this, the past, the future, or just being unconsciously daydreaming again, etc. But listening, especially active listening, is being mindful and focusing to what others are saying, to understand their content and context. That's all. Do you think that most people can do it? It's difficult because it goes against their own nature, where normally they're putting themselves first and paying less attention to other people's words or opinions. By asking them to focus on others first, it's against their nature. That's why it's not easy to do so. You need to be mindful to do that. Sort of like semi-forcing yourself to do something against your intuition, which's quite difficult. So if you wanted to start active listening to anyone, you'll need this superhero, the mindfulness, to guide you again. You can't escape this superhero. Ha ha ha. If you don't believe Bee, try it. Have a friend read a page to you while you're also listening to music, or have you 10 simple math quizzes in your mind at the same time, and see if you can summarize the content of the book on that page or not. Active listening is a skill that must be practiced. How much do I have to practice? You may ask. And as a suggestion, Bee said, until it's your second nature. For some person who is born to be a very mindful person might take a few times. But for most people, probably many, many, many more times, haha. Mindfulness skill, it's just like focusing on your breathing, or anapanasati, as what the Lord Buddha taught us. You may be able to stay focusing on your breath for a while. But eventually, without you realizing it, your mind has wandered off to something else. Okay, it's time to play the game again. Okay, let's try this exercise. Get the timer on your phone ready and start the timer. Once the timer starts, you have to keep your mind focusing on your breathing in and out, in and out. Once you realized, you shift focus to another thought and no longer on your breathing, then stop the timer. Well, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, let's start. For those who watch the clip, please pause playing this clip first. Then come look at it after you've finished trying the activity or answering the questions. As for those who read from books or from the web page, stop reading for a moment and do the activity first. Oh, my time's up. How did you do? How long did you stay with your breathing? Let's say it's 47 seconds. Does it mean that you have stayed focused on your breathing for 47 seconds? Think carefully before answering that, is it? What did Beee mention in the previous paragraph? Beee mentioned that you won't even notice when your mind drifts off from focusing on your breathing to something else. Therefore, the length of time on your timer is the time you focus on your breath when you start this exercise plus the time you were wandering off somewhere. Now it's a guesswork to see how much time you doze off during that exercise. Let's say if you feel like you're back to your breathing quite quickly, you can assume that you might have just been away from your earlier moment, which is the breathing only about 10 seconds maybe? Haha. For some of you who's still trying to pinpoint the time you shift focus from your breathing to something else, Beee like to tell you, borrowing the Borg slogan, resistance is futile. Meaning, your attempts is futile. It's what the mind does. It always like to wander here and there, and without practice to keep or tie it to something tangible, like your body in this case, breathing, it'll keep wandering from this subject to that thought to those, etc. Just like what the Lord Buddha taught more than 2,000 years ago, it was true then. It's still true now. This practice that's called meditation is basically training us to stay in the present moment. For instance, in this exercise, it is the breathing that used as an anchor for the present. Since we're all breathing all the time, if we're not zombies, haha. Don't know if zombies has breath though. There's no scientific research on that fantasy subject, haha. But if they aren't breathing, why do they need to eat? How's that metabolism work? There's no need for Beee to promote the benefits of staying in the present moment, which are plentiful. It should be common wisdom by now. And it's the key skill to help you navigate the terrain of living this life, let alone conflicting conversations you venture yourself into. Let's get back to the subject, okay? It's time to play the game again. Okay, let's try to guess. When another person talks, we often don't listen. And while he's talking, what are we doing? Well, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, let's start. For those who watch the clip, please pause playing this clip first. Then come look at it after you've finished trying the activity or answering the questions. As for those who read from books or from the web page, stop reading for a moment and do the activity first. Oh, my time's up. How are you? Have you gotten the answer yet? How did you do? Did you guess correctly? When another person talks, we often don't listen. And while he's talking, what were we doing? We were thinking about what we were going to say to him next after he's done his bit. When you were too busy thinking about a comeback. That is, you're not listening. When you don't listen, you don't understand the other's point of view. When you don't understand others' point of view, you don't know why they want what they want. When you don't know why they want what they wanted, you are unable to agree or deny their position. When you are unable to agree or deny their position, the talk comes to a halt. You probably can see how this talk is going. And it's nowhere. It will keep dragging on and never end, like Bee's program. Before Bee presented the benefit of active listening, let's look at how it's done. When the other side speaks, you must be mindful and listen to them. Listen to what? Remember? Listen to understand the others. And along the way, when the other tries to explain, but that person is not one who can explain anything to anyone clearly. There will be things that you don't understand in their story. Or the reason they said wasn't so clear what they mean, then what should you do? Correct? Ask. Just ask them to clarify or elaborate on that. And then you said it back to them to see if you understand them correctly. Rephrasing what they have told you in your own words. Not their words, remember? You're not a parrot or parakeet, haha. You keep doing this process again and again until you can understand them better. And how much better, you may ask? The sign telling you that you have understood them is when after you have asked them to clarify themselves, and you rephrase back to them enough times, that they starts utter the phrases like, "That's it," "Yes, you've got it," or something along this line. Then they feel that you begin to understand their POV or point of view, or where their reasonings are coming from. And after they feel that you understand them, and that's when the magic happens, because then they will start listening to you. In summary, the followings are the principles for active listening. 4.2.1 Don't assume anything. This is the first lesson that Bee always reminds everyone when doing anything, especially talking to someone. That is, don't rush or jump to conclusions about anything without listening to the end, or still do not understand the matter thoroughly. It is necessary to be curious to the person speaking in front of you. Premature assumption are strictly prohibited. Everyone has missed it. Bee has never met anyone who guessed correctly, or has the right assumption, all of them were wrong, ha ha ha. Instead of assuming that you already know the other person's point of view or intention, it is better to approach the conversation with genuine curiosity and a desire to understand the other person's perspective. 4.2.2 Openness to listen to different opinions. This matter is quite difficult for ordinary people, who often have a bias towards beliefs or opinions of others that do not agree with one's own. You must rely on the Buddhist principles to help guide you, by reducing reliance or attachment to the self, in which you think is the correct stance, so that you can be more open to listening to different ideas. If you still hold on or cling to your perception and thoughts, and attitudes that are the only correct ones, you probably fall into the trap of one of the most basic human fallacy, and that is the confirmation bias, where you ignore to observe or consider things that are contrary to your beliefs. This one is also very difficult, because Bee felt into this trap before and caused Bee dearly. For 2.3 Listen carefully to what the other person is saying without interrupting or predetermining your answer. Pay attention to both their words and body language signals, to gain a deeper understanding of their perspectives, and summarize your understanding in your own words, by rephrasing what you've learned back to them. 4.2.4 Asking questions. Ask open-ended questions to encourage the other person to share their thoughts and feelings more fully. Avoid leading or judgmental questions that could end the conversation. 4.3 Conversation structure. In general, talking is like a boxing match. There are two fighters punching each other, and the goal is to knock the other out. The differences are that we used reasons and logic instead of fist, to go back and forth fighting one another. But one thing is missing in an informal bout of debate match, and that there's no referee, who will make sure that it's a fair fight or debate, especially in talking about matters that do not have a clear conclusion, or are gray subject matters. When there's no referee, it's a mess. However, if one or the pair acts as an honorary referee, not only he or she will gain an advantage over his or her opponent in that the referee/boxer will be the one controlling the fight, not to get out of hand comparing to the fight without the referee, whereby each boxers will only try to win no matter what. This virtual referee concept will be discussed further in detail later in the program. 4.4 Conversation model. The conversation usually constructs of two parties upward to multiple parties. Therefore, the opinion expressed by each parties involved are part of the conversation model. However, for the sake of simplicity or concept to understand, Bee will focus on the model of two participants. The opinions or beliefs or thoughts expressed by each party will be called story, as in the followings. First story, it's our point of view. It is an individual's perspective or interpretation of a discussion or conflict. It reflects beliefs, assumptions, and emotions about a situation, as well as the assessment of other parties related. The first matter is often influenced by our own personal biases, and may not fully understand the complexity of the situation. The second story, it is the opposing point of view, refers to a point of view or interpretation of our interlocutor. It expresses beliefs, assumptions, and emotions about a situation, as well as an assessment of the person and his role in the conflict. The second story is often different from the first. Otherwise, there would be no discussion of difference of opinions, ha ha ha. And this second story also provides valuable insight into the other side's motivations and concerns. Third story. Bee calls it the judge or the referee's point of view. That is neutral, must not have a conflict of interest from any party. It attempts to combine stories 1 and 2 into a more comprehensive understanding of the conflict. It involves stepping back from an individual perspective and considering the broader context, content that may be hidden, and common points between the various parties related. The third story serves as the basis for constructive conversation and problem solving in that ongoing conversation. Oh, it's time to play the game again. Okay, let's try to guess. If we are the ones who open up the conversation, which story should be the one we should start with? The first, second, or the third? Well, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, tick-tock, 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 let's start. For those who watch the clip, please pause playing this clip first. Then come look at it after you've finished trying the activity or answering the questions. As for those who read from books or from the web page, stop reading for a moment and do the activity first. Oh, the time's up. How did you do? Have you gotten the answer yet? Did you guess correctly? It's time to open up and talk about difficult topics. If we are the ones who open up the conversation, which story should be the one we should start with? The first, second, or the third? Answer: most people tend to start with story number 1. Or the first story, but it's not a good idea to start with that, because it is a perspective that harbors bias. Whose bias? Yours, of course, whose else? Haha! When you start off with your story, it tend to attract direct opposite viewpoint and criticism, causing the conversation to bog down on a trench warfare-like situation, where each party tried to win the other over with their arguments. So if it's not a good idea to start with the first story, which one to start off then? You should start off with a neutral opinion. Therefore, when opening a complex conflict causing issues, we should start with the third story as the opening. And since you are the virtual referee who control the game, by opening with the third story, you've got the credit for being a fair opponent. Since in this third story, there will be some point that's not beneficial to you, albeit neutral for everyone to see. And that's what give you credit. Not only that, when starting off with the third story, everyone involved feel relaxed since you just summarize or state the whole big picture to everyone in the group. Besides being perceived as a person of justice who don't want to take advantage of anyone. Now, after the neutral perspective, or the third story has been presented, which story should be next, the second or the first? Oh, it's time to play the game again. Which story should be the story we continue after the third story we started? Well, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, tick-tock, 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 let's start. For those who watch the clip, please pause playing this clip first. Then come look at it after you've finished trying the activity or answering the questions. As for those who read from books or from the web page, stop reading for a moment and do the activity first. Oh, the time's up. How did you do? Have you gotten the answer yet? Did you guess correctly? Which story should be the story we continue after we started with the third story? What about the second story? Are you a little confused? Since you were the one who opened the door for the third story. That is, the referee's point of view. How do you do the opposing side or the second story, which you have no idea what it's going to be? When Beee said that the second story was next, meaning that it's your duty to ask the second story out of the opponent's side. Then let them explain and elaborate using the techniques Beee mentioned above in active listening. By keep asking questions and rephrasing those you understand back to them, until they utter the word, yes, that's it, that was it. Then they are done presenting their second story. Now you don't have to play the game anymore, because there is only one story left, and that is the first story, or yours, and that you've listened to your opponent's story, therefore it's your turn. Naturally, people will not listen to anyone, unless they feel that they've been heard and understood. Then they will be open to listen to others in return. 4.5 Debate referee or controller. Who controls this debate or discussion game as briefly touched upon earlier. Comparing informal debate to an unstructured boxing match without the referee. We'll dive into more detail now. In a formal debate that you have probably seen through various media, there are often many people competing with each other, and there are judges who control the exchanges, to be fair to everyone or every team to present their point of view clearly without interruption, within an equal length of time, etc. But in informal debate, when we accidentally chat with friends, and it's creeping into a gray area, that friendly debate starts turning into a heated argument, because no one backs down on their stands. Most participants never listen to, or read this program or article, because it's too long and too boring to listen to. Or in current Thai psyche, it's more than 7 lines of text. Where most people, especially later generation, feels it's too overwhelmed for them to absorb. Unfortunately, you're the only one in the group who came across this program and understands some of the concepts be presented here, and trying to use those applicable techniques to get control of the situation. Obviously for you, when everyone in the group acts like a mindless idiots automatically, it means that the debate in this group has no referee or controller. The idea clashes have a chance of escalating to a big issue, causing the friendly debate into something potentially uncontrollable. That could go so big, creating conflicts and pointless arguments in the end, because the rest of them are oblivious to their own trying to win the argument behaviors. Therefore, if there is no referee, then this duty of an honorary referee falls on you. Because, unfortunately, you happen to stumbled across Bee's article or this program. As mentioned earlier, this type of fight needs a referee to enforce rules and fairness to all sides, including yours, the honorary referee. You have to do 2 duties interchangeably. Besides presenting your argument in a calm and relaxed manner, you also have to supervise the debate not to go too far off. You must be the person who pulls the conversation partner, who is obsessed with defeating you, with their best logic. Guide them back on track. Don't forget that you're immersed in a circle of grayness, and that your temp job at that moment is trying to bring out the advantages from all sides and mix them together as solutions for all parties' mutual acceptance. You may argue that, oh, how am I going to do that? Since you are also one of the boxer. Bee will tell you that you just have to be a multi-personalities type of boxer. At a proper time you give a punch, at other time you drag your opponent back into the ring. Got it? Bee knows it's not that easy. But hey, nobody said it's easy. But Bee thinks it's easier than try to understand what Bee has to say in this program and use it in real life.
It is difficult to do so because of your ego, your identity,
and you yourself also wanted to win your argument. So what will you do?
Again, by being mindful.
Do you see that this superhero often pops up at the crucial moments?
Again and again.
That is, being mindful and aware that self is the construct of the mind, and it's not real. That also goes the same for winning a debate or winning anything at all. It doesn't matter. Those victories are still fake. They're real only in your head. Bee don't think Bee can explain the very deep concept of the Lord Buddha's teaching in just a few paragraphs so that it's easily understood, but Bee will try anyway. First off, understanding self. Self is the illusion people think it's them. They perceive their body and mind are their real self, when actually from Buddha's insight, it's just a combination of various natural elements come together to form a living being, a human in this case. Let's skip the part debating if this model is valid or not. That's a whole other controversial subject or grayish matter Bee doesn't want to get into at this time. Let's just stick to the understanding of self for the moment, and goes with the majority of the people who believe so that your body and mind is you. When you think that the self is you, then everything relates to that you has an effect on you. Bee gives you time here to ponder the previous sentence. Okay, let's continue. And if someone scolds or insults this you will feel angry, right? You probably get back at that person either verbally or physically, depending on what type of a person you are. Might say something like, "How dare you?" or "Who do you think you are insulting me like that?" or some of you might just walk away, etc. And this is the normal reaction most self people would react, because that insult or scolding attack the you, the one you believe is you, that entity that you possess.
Do you get me? Yes, Bee's asking the you,
not the self. You?
However, just imagine, and be not sure if this is easy for you to do so or not.
But just try, imagine that you don't think that the body and mind, that you're governing or occupy is not you, but just a lump of flesh and minds roaming this earth. In other words, no self-you in this body and mind. Therefore, when that person insults or scolds at this body and mind, it will not have any effect on this composition of body and mind, since there's no I, we, or you or them, etc. So there's no one to feel angry or irritate or upset, etc. Bee's not sure if the explanation is clear enough for you to understand, considering your background is on the opposite end of this line of this thought model. Bee won't go into further detail about this self thing. If you need further understanding, please search for more info and better explanation later. Now, let's get back to the subject. In Bee's explanation above, if there's no self, then there's no negative feeling to feel. Since there's no one there to feel that feeling, let's just assume this much. Now there are 2 steps to this. The first one is to understand that there's no self. The next step is to achieve that no self state, which is the destination for all Buddhists. But it's not that easy. So Bee won't talk about that. But Bee would talk about the first step, and that's knowing that there's no self. So what the person does or acts differently when he or she has this insight. Of course, they won't get attached to things or people around them. They will just react to them as thing or people that come into contact with them temporarily. And soon those thing or people will be gone, or they themselves will be gone when their times come. Realize this insight causes them not to get too attached to anything, including the attack on that body and mind they are occupying. They wouldn't feel angry nor happy, sad nor pleased, etc. as much as the average ordinary people. Remember, they still not disconnect completely from the self. So they still feel the remnant or regular feeling, but not at full spectrum of them. Well, you may interject that it's not the way you wanted to live like that? Like a neutral person don't feel any joy or pain. Well, that's your choice. But before you decide or just wanted to stay as you are, aren't you curious to its effect of being a neutral being? How it's like? Just a bit, yes, no? Once you've experienced that, then you can compare to your normal state earlier. And then you can choose. But if you don't even try, how can you tell? Besides, isn't this the way you should choose how to live, right? Everyone want to live the best life they can have. But if they never try another lifestyle, how do they know that the one they are currently living is the best? Bee will just leave this issue at this because it's taking too much time and space already, haha. Like Bee said earlier, if you're interested, just explore further and then choose. But not just stay in your comfort zone and said it's the best. That's sort of deluding yourself, is it not? However, even if you realize that noble truth, doesn't mean that you are selfless. When Bee used the word selfless, doesn't mean not selfish, but the meaning in Buddhist teaching that you're no longer attached to the illusion of self, which resulting in you don't entertain either the idea of winning or losing anymore. Well, that is another story. No, not just story, but big stack of books of the Lord Buddha's teaching. Definitely not being covered in this program, ha ha ha. However, since most of us all still attached to self, and only a few realize that it's not real, and whoever understand this program and practicing it, probably knows that too, to a certain extent, ha ha ha. Hopefully that person is you. You can at least get less attached to that artifact of an idea of winning than that of your opponent. Less attached enough for you to be aware that you also have another role, an honorary one, as a referee in this bout, and that it is your job to keep this idea competition in its proper track, and come out with a conclusion or solutions all parties accept in the end. Therefore, you must be mindful. Being mindful to see the big picture, seeing the grayness of the matter being discussed. There is no way that anyone has the answer or solution alone. The opinions of the other party are also reasonable, differing only in the level of effectiveness or efficiency in solving problems. If you are mindful and remember this property of the matter you're doing, it will make you different from ordinary people. You will not try to conquer any one of your superior intellectual reasoning only, but you will try to make every side see the advantages of the other party as well. Everyone is looking for a common ground to stand on. If you can do that, you will be a person who can rise above all conflicts, and being a leader who can bring people with different ideas to join hands to solve problems together. It's probably cooler than a non-unanimous winning boxer. And remember, since this subject isn't black and white, most parties should see the advantages and disadvantages of all parties' arguments. Even they might not agree to all, but they should leave this tournament of thoughts and ideas with at least the feeling of agree to disagree. All the above principles and concepts are from the book Bee mentioned at the beginning of this topic. If you're interested to learn more, you should take a look at this wonderful book. Well, with that said, let's get sidetracked a bit here about this book, and tell you why it's the best in the material world, but not spiritual one though. Since the content is about how communication, especially difficult one, works, its nature or dynamic, its structure, its goal, and how should it be done. All of these based on typical human behavior. It's like these three authors have figured out the secret behind its mechanism and lay out instructions of how to do it. And to achieve all these, it took three persons' joint collaboration to finish this book. And it's only focusing on a very narrow segment of human interaction with the world, and that is conversation. Just one tiny subject in a vast array of human living. And what about René Descartes, who's spending his whole life tried to figure what's the meaning of life and came up with, I think therefore I am. Just that, without even reaching the illusion of self-concept. Please don't get me wrong. Bee has no intention to put anyone down. Especially these people who are very much smarter than Bee. And we're talking about they are all one of the best thinkers human race ever has here. Bee's point is for you to consider next level of human intelligence that goes beyond genius level compared to those who came after him. His extremely broad but also very deep teaching and legacy that this superhuman being had left for us. Once upon a long time ago, about more than 2,500 years far away in India, a master of all master was born. And later, after his enlightenment, meaning that he saw and understood how life and the universe works, its basic and complex mechanism, similar the three authors mentioned above. And when anyone has figured out how things work, those knowledge stay with us until the universe collapses. The fact like the world is round, various branches of scientific knowledge, etc. What the Lord Buddha taught us is similar. When you look at other religious beliefs and teachings, you probably notice some common things about those. And that some of them have to keep adjusting their teaching through passing of time, like you can't accuse any non-believers as witch and burn them now, or imprisonment some naysayer until he's blind anymore, for example. Not to mention the loopholes or hundreds of contradictions and discrepancies in the teachings themselves. While there's no such significant evidence of those contradictions in the Lord Buddha's teaching, what he taught thousands of years ago still stands today. No change, no contradiction, no discrepancies. Bee tried searching for that and found such a few articles. But once Bee took a look in detail, it's that author's lack of full understanding of the Buddha's teaching, rather than the flaws in the teaching itself. So, his teaching collection is recorded into a stack of 45 to 80 books, depends on which version you wanted to refer to. And this by a single man in history, who has laid down all the basic facts of life and beyond, including the meaning of life, of course. How nature and supernatural works, its dynamic, life itself and its delusion of self. How the human mind works, in which you can think of it as the first psychological model of the human mind circa around 0 CE. Its structure, life's goal, and not only this but the next life, beyond, and the final destination. If one want to go there. The topic covers various aspects from being a bad or a decent person to the best person you can be. How to live your life. How to live in harmony with others as a society. How to manage your emotions. Finance. Detail on how to give and to whom. How to do the best you can in various roles as a father, mother, son, daughter, husband, wife, brother, sister, friend, etc. In all aspect of your life from birth to your death and beyond. And all these knowledge from only one person. Covering content both broad and deep. Simple to difficult, depending on your level of intelligence to decipher and understand them. The teachings are very detailed. There's no guessing game or interpretation here, unlike others whereby open to different interpretations. And not only that, they have to keep adjusting their practice through time, which isn't quite a reliable guide for your followers, don't you think? If at a certain period what you do is bad, and later it's not so bad anymore. A bit confusing to follow if you asked Bee. Bee emphasizes again. All these teachings that stand the test of thousands of years' time. Those valuable information are from just one man. At the time where 99.9% of the people on the planet still believe in superstitions, sacrification, meaningless ritual, fire, sacred mountain, holy river, weird animal, etc. Even though some of them still believing in those weird stuff nowadays. Some of you might disagree with Bee and said that Buddhism also has many sects and different beliefs similar to those other religions. The reason for that is because of the lesser man than Buddha caused those diversions of beliefs and ideas. How so? For other religions it's easy to see since it's the earlier man's version who manufactured those beliefs from their imagination. With less definitive teaching and vague stories, thus allowed for various interpretations and alternative arguments. However, it's different for Buddhism. If you study and understand the core teachings of the Lord Buddha, mostly other sects' interpretations still circle around the core principles of the Lord Buddha's teaching with slight deviation. But the different sex problems happened anyway. It rose due to the similar causes as the other religions. And that it's the human who is less of a master and deluded themselves that they have a better idea. Slightly better than the Lord Buddha himself, ha ha ha. As the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And with those good intentions they thought what they added to the Lord's teaching will enhance it even better. Wrong! Which in fact it's not the case, since the Lord Buddha already knew in advance that a lot of smart people would try this stunt. At a later time after he has passed, there will be these well-wished disciples who want to improve upon his teaching. Therefore, he forbid anyone tampering by adding or removing any of his teaching. And human, they're always do what they're told. Right? Some of those added to the Lord Buddha's original teaching, while some went away forming different sects with slight variations on the main theme, etc. If you want to study the Lord Buddha teaching, you may have to do quite a research and comparison to see which one is close to the original teaching as possible. Since if you missed the right one, it's like you've got the wrong map, which may either delay your journey or, worse, bring you to another destination altogether. The reason why Beee thinks that the book recommended above is the best in the material world is based on the comparison of its content to the teaching of the Lord Buddha, in which both have the same type of analytical process to arrive at its conclusion. And that is both understand how things work, then what to do with it, and finally how to do it, if you decided to follow its guidelines. So for the book, it's the conversation, whereby most communication books try to reach these properties, but not quite there yet. If you can find such a book with these properties, then that's probably a valuable book for you if your interest aligns with its content. Some of you might ask, have Beee tried the guidelines listed in the book? Of course, Beee has tried it and the result is amazing. You will be surprised how people change their stance towards you when you utilize the techniques from the book. You'll see the improvement in how other related to you instantly. Wow! It really works, that's Beee remarked internally. And for the Lord Buddha's teaching, it's this life and beyond and the final destination, if you decided you wanted to go there, of course, where most religious beliefs give some sort of guidelines or prospect of the afterlife, which are ambiguous at best, leaving to each person's interpretation, but not the one the Lord Buddha taught. For example, just look at the details or how to be a monk, few thousands rules of do's and don't. No guessing game here. Or when he mentioned hell, it's not from his vision or imagination, but from his trip down there when he visited that place. Similar to current YouTuber who go out to review some travel destination. As for hell, the Lord described what he saw, how it is and what it's like, with details that you can picture it yourself. That's why he warned us that he never see any type of imprisonment as harsh and cruel as in hell. But hey, don't take the Lord's word for it. Just try it and see for yourself. By the way, don't let Beee know, okay? Well, that's Bee's 2 cents. Now, after already knowing ourselves, it's time for the last point of knows 2 to 3. Know C. Know the others or your opponents. That is, you need to know who are you dealing with, basically, so you can strategize how to deal with them. And it's the same as knowing yourself earlier in the program. Beee uses the Lord Buddha's model in determining the type of person your opponents are. For example, if you figured out quite accurately that they are the type of angry or blind faith demeanors, what should you do? It's better to avoid these people. But if unavoidable, then you know how to deal with them. You know which button to push the angry one and which one to ignore the ignorance one. And so on. Because the blind faith one won't change their mind no matter what. Instead, you just have to dig for the advantage or the good point from them to use as part of the total shared solutions. But if you're lucky enough to come across the other party, who is more like a Buddha chariot or a lotus that is just slightly emerging above water, or the emotionally mature intellect and open-minded one, notice the emotionally mature prefix. That's important. It means that this person is not only intelligent but they're also emotionally smart. Then yes, Beee calls this people wise men, not wise ass or wise guy. This intelligent person who is open-minded and willing to learn things is a person worth exchanging your thoughts and ideas with. Unfortunately, you can single-handedly count how many you would come across throughout your lifetime, comparing to the abundance of wise guys or smart asses with big ego who happen to cross your path. You will get interesting conclusions from this talk. from different angles in a way that will make you incredibly surprised. But please be realistic, the opportunity for you to meet such people with these qualities is very rare. Just look at Bee's efforts in trying to talk with a famous writer friend that failed miserably in this episode. Emotional freedom, take responsibility for your own feelings. Self-reliance, psychology and Dhamma in practice. In the link below. Because Bee was trying to communicate to get the point across and failed 8 times in pulling Bee's friend away from the old issue to the new one. Bee felt like, why can't Bee speak so that others can understand? Right now Bee is in the process of starting to learn how to talk again. And this is the person who has been friend for a long time. And Bee think Bee knows how he thinks, or maybe not. Bee just assume that Bee thinks Bee knows, not sure? Hey, Bee should take Bee's own medicine sometimes, ha ha ha. However, it doesn't mean that you're unable to meet or find smart people who can debate with you. It's just rare, that's all. Because like Bee always said, that being smart doesn't mean having maturity. There are a lot of intelligent people in this world, but because most of them are often full of ego, meaning they fall into the trap of their own intelligence. So much so that they think they know everything even before you open your mouth. But in fact they don't know one simple fact, and that is open mind makes you smarter. Hey, no one ever said this before, so Bee said it here first, better record this. Open mind makes you smarter. Bee Game Boy, April 1st, 2024. 5. Examples in practice. After Bee finished this section in the Thai version, Bee just realized that Bee wrote something like a possible solution to the current political system. Not the discussion itself. Bee wishes to have time to write the proper sample in the next edited version of this episode later on. So sorry for the example of an orange but not the apple, but it's still considered a fruit nonetheless. Before going to this program summary, Bee thinks that an example of bringing all the principles mentioned above to use in practice is needed. And since the content is about politics, therefore, Bee would like to present guidelines for its use in the political field as follows. The current system of government in the world. Most of them are democratic. The majority of the rulers are elected by the party that received the popular vote from the majority of the people, and this will be the government side. The party that received less popular votes went to the opposition. Normally, the government should have more voices than the opposition, so that the time what policy has been announced, they can vote to pass whatever law they proposed. Roughly, it works like this. What problems Bee sees is in this system. It is a system of using the principle of one party to run the country, which is not natural to the situation or problems at hand that need all the answers we've got, not from a single group of representatives. It goes against Bee's principles regarding gray subject issues discussed above, guidelines for solving countries' problems, which are complex and multifaceted, which should then use problem-solving technique that unite all the ideas and solutions from all parties involved, not just one party. There are many problems in this type of political system. 5.1. Poor screening process. The current system is a selective system based on popularity. There is no criteria on experiences or measurement of past success in leading previous organizations before apply to be a candidate. You probably see the problem. This system would recruit what type of people into the office. The result is we get unqualified representative who has no clue of how to govern. The end result is that we get people based on the popularity vote from the majority of people. Some representatives have no experience in leading any organization before. As in some cases here in Thailand, for example, don't even know which enactment belongs to which ministry or how to even read number correctly, not to mention, a lot of them got themselves involved in a questionable risky scandal, sexual abuse, etc. So how can we solve the problems of the elected representative? Not to mention their ethical standards. How to measures that is even more difficult. That is, anyone who volunteers to work for the country, at least, should have many years of experience in managing organizations. And some measures such as level of success in managing those companies should also be taken into account. For example, has the organization always been profitable or not? Revive a business that is about to go bankrupt. To be able to come back to standing, or leading a financial organization that gives poor people access to basic financial services, etc. These screening measures of candidates for election in this dimension are unclear. Besides, a certain level of education is a must-have qualification. 5.2. Selector or voter score. Another problem in the current system is the vote score, or WET, for each person who has the right to vote, is the same, and that is one person, one vote. There are probably many people who disagree with Beee in this issue. Before you guys drag me into another debate about this issue, let's hear Beee out. Let's say there's a plane in which the captain had a heart attack, suddenly became unable to function. Suppose that democratic principles are used to choose a new captain by giving passengers to vote for the new captain. There are 3 possible candidates who claimed they have flight training. Then please review which group of voters you want to decide the fate of this plane. Group A. You and the other 200 voters who are all elementary school children. Group B. You are among the 50 voters who are adult passengers and flight crews. Group C. You and the other 5 voters who are in aviation company, who know these 3 candidates' training experiences and records. Group D. You are among the 200 elementary school children and 50 adult passengers, flight crews, and the 5 personnels from aviation company. Now, if voter each gets equal weight on his or her vote, which group you'd rather be in? Whose selective judgment do you think is more credible and would likely to choose the right candidate for the job of saving this plane and, most importantly, your life? And what if you were in Group D? Would you still insist on equal voting right for all? This very short story just illustrates the current political voting system, with equal right for each voter being used around the world. Let's get back to the qualification of the candidate just a bit. Don't you know that managing a successful organization is already quite a difficult task? However, when comparing to the administration of a country, it's just become a piece of cake? Right? Because administration of a country is considered to be the most difficult tasks imagined for any brilliant executives, because it is hundreds of times more difficult than managing company. Not to mention the stake, which is the life and death of its people. Just look at the example of Hitler in World War II, who led the nation to destruction and collapse. Along with tens of millions of people died around the world. Therefore, for the proper administration of the country, we need people who are both talented, fully equipped with management experiences, and full of ethics, and, the most important before that candidate starts to do his job is the people who elect him or her into the office. So by giving it to ordinary people equal voting right or weight, ordinary people who don't even have the ability to imagine the complexity of its nation multifaceted problems, this equal right seems absurd. Just like the elementary school kids in the plane story mentioned earlier, not considering the level of education of the voter at all. Of course, there are ignorance bachelor degree out there. We're not discussing about any qualification flaws here, but trying to come up with better criteria for the system. You need an educated person. To choose an educated person as a representative to govern the country, you can solve the problem of uneducated person score for voting by evaluate it from his life experiences. For example, if they're in the business for 10 years, they have the same score as a bachelor degree graduate, etc. The point is we should give more weight to the one who knows what they're doing, in terms of life experiences or higher education or high level of charity organization, etc. That is, if we want to choose someone, we have to look at ourselves first. Do we have the ability to choose? As well as weight. Elementary school students have the same voting score as the crew of that plane. If we have little capability in choosing, and choose based on we like it or dislike that candidate's look, then the country is unlikely to survive. 5.3. Wrong government structure. The current system creates two-sided parties, the government and opposition, where they don't work together as a team, that they supposed to do so according to Bee's lengthily explained principles in this program. When country problems are so complex in many dimensions at various levels, anyone who think their party is the superhero of party, who can solve this humongous mountain of a problem such as this, is deluding themselves. Some of the problems are not solvable, even the greatest minds from both sides works together. So what make any of them think that they can solve this alone? Don't you think that we should gather all the great minds from whatever parties they belong to and start working together? Bee thinks so. The system should encourage the spirit of working together as the country team trying to solve its challenging issues, instead of crippling this team by having them into fighting enemies. Naturally, when putting two opposing idea teams to work together, the dynamic is difficult to be practical. which usually resort back to more votes decide on any policy discussed. Therefore, we need the third wheel to decide the outcome. And that's where the third party comes in. This neutral party is the deciding vote on any issue at the time of the meeting. No more worry about the number of votes anymore. 2 out of 3 is the deciding score. The followings are some of the suggested solutions briefly touched upon earlier. 5.4. Add a screening system that is more intense than before. Emphasis is placed on at least basic educational qualifications. What level should it be? If you have no work experience, and if some candidate with no higher education, what are their professional experiences in the real world in business or public sector or charity or philanthropic ventures, etc. 5.5. Give unequal weight or elective score to people's vote. If it is a person who has no education will be less than those who have been educated or have long experience working, etc. Before you object to go back and listen or read stories about elementary school children choose their new pilot again. 5.6. This one is likely to be extremely difficult, namely changing the government structural system. Instead of the two parties, government fighting against the opposition, to set laws here and there as it pleases, because they have the majority votes as the current system is. Implementing a system of 3 parties working together, as previously described. 5.6.1 Revise the minority vote parties into second working party, with cute or nice name to be determined later. Ha ha ha. 5.6.2 Set up the third neutral party, that might not come from the people's vote only or a combination or selected member vote together with people's vote, etc. Basically, it comes from the appointment of a qualified person that has been selected from neutral organization or agency of the country, with a standpoint and transparency in selecting reliable members, both experience and ethics. For example, it might be possible to stipulate that members of an organization must have more than half of the members who are women, and those who work in charitable organizations, judges, prosecutors, etc. The details will have to be discussed again to filter out fake people. 5.6.3 Setting policies or laws or public administration must be the result of unanimous agreement on principles by all 3 parties or at least 2 out of 3 votes from these 3 parties. Some example of how this principle works. There are 3 ministers from 3 parishes, shared in each ministry working together. The work is the result of cooperation from all 3 parties. This suggested system encourages all parties to work together. Beee believes people want the people they choose to come to work. Sitting or standing while cursing at the government party doesn't look like work to Beee or the electors. So if you want everyone to work together, 2 sides shouldn't be enough. It will revert back the majority votes again. Therefore, it is necessary to have a third party. For example, the General Committee usually has an odd number members, in order to have a majority deciding votes. Or it can be unanimous. Here's another analogy of find a solution together. If you have ever seen some examples of these, like, instead of punishing the group of troubled youth, whether they are siblings or students, who don't get along or fight with each other, no matter how many people involved, some parents or teachers order them to go back and discuss among themselves how to solve problems together, in other words, forcing them to put their differences aside and find way to work together indirectly. Otherwise, everyone like the whole class or all siblings will be punished, etc. These will use the neutral parties to put pressure on the trouble ones to cooperate and work together. Now that we have laid out a framework for everyone to work together, all that is left is supervision or evaluation procedure to ensure effective work results by setting up an independent organization that are under the law, but not under the control of the government. This agency is responsible for evaluating the performance of the government implementation, maybe by grading based on performance, effectiveness in solving public problems like flood, traffic, pollution, etc., to make sure this 3 parties team implementation actually work in the real world, not just pipe dream when they scout for votes before the election. The work of these team actually benefits people in real life in a tangible manner. And not only that, the results of the evaluation are immediate. If this first team failed, they're shelved and their vices. Replace them as the next team and so on. They will be replaced immediately and people do not have to wait for the next election to watch the incompetent failed and go back on their promises again. Each team start off with the short-term project, solving country's small problem, and longer for the next bigger one if they pass the earlier one, like start off with 3 months long project. If passed, then 6 months long, and so on. There are a load of details to work on in this system, of course. And a lot of flaws in Bee's sample, but it's just an idea, okay? Before finishing this example, let's take a break and play the game a bit. Oh, it's time to play the game again. Okay, let's try to guess. According to Bee's suggested system above, if you were forced to choose, what principles or qualities do you agree the least? But you think it might be useful if applied to public administration system of the government in any country. Well, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, tick-tock, 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 let's start. For those who watch the clip, please pause playing this clip first. Then come look at it after you've finished trying the activity or answering the questions. As for those who read from books or from the web page, stop reading for a moment and do the activity first. Oh, my time's up. How did you do? Have you gotten the answer yet? Did you guess correctly? According to Bee's suggested system above, if you were forced to choose, what principles or qualities do you agree the least? But you think it might be useful if applied to public administration system of the government in any country. Well, here's an answer. No, it's not an answer. It's just Bee's opinion. Bee thinks that the system or principle that any political system around the world lacks is accountability, or the responsibility for promises made to the people before and after you've entered the office and failed to do so. Every era, every politician. Have you ever seen any politician who promised the people this and that and failed to deliver, get any repercussion or tangible result from that? None. Of course. For example, the traffic problem will be solved within 6 months. Or solve the flooding problem in Bangkok, etc. Nothing happened to them when they failed or break their promises. Nothing. Are you bored with these politicians?
In general,
if anyone makes a promise and breaks it, they are subject to the punishment of the law accordingly. And that's applicable to all citizen, except there is no such rule enforced upon the public office, elected administrators, who failed to live up to their promises. And why's that? For example, if politicians see promise that, after studying the problem for 2 years, he will solve the problem of flooding, dust, etc. within 1 year. If he cannot do this, he will resign. And if the dateline is reached after 1 year and the evaluation committee considered he failed what he has delivered, then he should resign by himself or be fired by the committee. If such a system is implemented, let's see who will dare to speak nonsense and empty promises again in the future. Interestingly, someone in the States do have similar political ideas to Bee's above ideological sample. Unfortunately for both of our countries, he is a comedian, and you know how well the main establishments seriously consider this profession's political view. And as for Bee, I'm a nobody in Thailand,
and looking at the current Thai political landscape, which is moving towards the ditches,
it probably takes over 10 generations for the people to embrace this type of corporating dynamic to take shape in the governing body among any human society. Dan Cummins, trying to get better, full comedy stand-up special, at 1 hour and 54 seconds. 6. Summary. In conclusion, after listening to Bee long-winded style, let's summarize what we have learned so far. To why we shouldn't talk about politics or religion. But what if we wanted to? Before doing anything, you need to go through these 2 to 3 no's. No A. Know what's it you're going to do? No B. Know yourself. If what you're doing doesn't involve other people,
then only the above no's is enough.
But if you have to do it with other people, then no C. Know the others. 6.1 No A. In this program we're talking about something controversial, in this example, politics. So you need to know what it is, and it has these following properties. 6.1.1 Identity Challenge. This type of subject question what we believe. It is challenging to who we are, both of which are what define us as a person. So anything that is opposing our beliefs and thoughts, we feel threatened by it. Therefore we need to be careful to thread lightly, focusing only on the subject, and control it not to be an attack on the other person's ego or their self which you know will bring out the worst in them. 6.1.2 Gray subject matter. The other important property of this type of issue is its unclear solution or way out or conclusion, depending on each side interpretations and solving skill, etc. In other words, it's not a clear-cut issue similar to black or white. Both sides have their certain merits, strong points and flaws, advantages and disadvantages, etc. Thus grayish of the matter. It's like arguing which coin side is better or worst, head or tail, it's pointless. 6.2 The next no is no Bee. Knowing yourself in the following's dimensions. 6.2.1 What type of person you are, from the following's 6 traits model in Buddhism. A lustful or emotional response more to feelings discard logic and reasoning. B. Anger or hot temper easily triggered by irritation. Get easily angry which then becomes stupid and crazy during their angrily phase. C. Blind faith or trusting. Once believe in something difficult to change their mind, believe without questioning. D. Delusional or ignorance. Oblivion to fact, logic and reasoning, or not educating themselves to the general knowledge of how things work. E. Anxious or paranoid. Unreasonably worrisome about most normal things in life. F. Intelligent, thoughtful. Logical, sometimes use brain more than feeling. Too straightforward, not so flexible. 6.2.2 How do you handle verbal attack? Can you stay above it, or it can drag you down there? 6.2.3 Self-control. Do you have what it takes to take control of yourself, not to be out of control? The sides also take control of the current discussion, unfolding in front of you, heading towards a ditch or off the cliff. 6.2.4 How to discuss controversial matters. Have you aware of all its properties and mastered all the skills necessary to do so? Below. A. Conversation purpose. Why do we need to have a conversation at all? That is to understand what and where the others are coming from. What are their reasons or pains or facts, etc. And that is a learning conversation. B. Conversation skills. The essential skill in conversation is active listening. Have you been aware that you're not a listener, let alone practicing it often? C. Structure. Do you know what type of a conversation structure is? It consists of you, the others, and referee, similar to a boxing match. The only difference is that there's probably no formal referee in an informal political or religious discussion you are in at the time. Therefore, this honorary title automatically belongs to you, since you're the only person who happens to be listening or reading this, unfortunately. D. Conversation model. Its model is called the 3 stories model, whereby each story representing each member's perspective or point of view. First story is your own. Second story is the others in the group. There can be more than 2 if the group has more than 2 different viewpoints. For example, for 5, then we consider those stories belong to member 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and so on, in which each of them has different opinion about the central subject being discussed. Third story is the viewpoint of the neutral party, who has no interest in the outcome of the group in either direction. We called this a referee point of view. This view is impartial and take every member's gain and loss into account. You start the process of discussion or debate by stating the third story first, to establish yourself as an honorary referee and a fair person, then followed by the second story, giving the chance to your opposition to air his view first, and once they feel like they've been heard by their agreeing with your summary of their reasoning in your own words, then you can present your story. Once everyone is heard, now it's time for the honorary referee to gather all the pros and cons of all the argument from all sides, and sum up those points back to the members, and then start the compromising process of give and take to get to the point of acceptance by everyone in the group, that each of them gains some and lose some, or stale made in the final joint agreement. D. Conversation controller or referee. It's your honorary title and job to maintain the talk in the civilized manner, and to keep the discussion on track and on time. Then summarize all that has been presented by all sides, and guide the negotiating process till the group has reached its agreement. 6.3 The last no C. Know your opponents. Use some of the things you learn from knowing yourself, and evaluate your opponent to figure out who are you dealing with, so you know if you should engage or avoid them, or if you want to spend or wasting time with them. For example, if you figured out they are the blind faith type, don't waste your time, but if they are the intelligent type, Wait, don't just jump and investigate further, haha. To see which one of them are they the wise guy type or the wise man type? If they happen to be the wise man type, don't hesitate, jump in. Otherwise just dabble a little bit. And later your common sense will automatically signaling you to spend time on something or someone else. Since it's extremely rare to meet the wise man, and you still think it's a good mental exercise to this wise guy, then you have to go through the checklist evaluating their other characteristics like how they handle insult or verbal attack. Do they have self-control? They definitely don't know the techniques of how to discuss complicated issues. Detailed in the book Bee recommends above. Rewind or scroll up to see what book that Bee mentioned is the best book in the material world. Then use those techniques while you mindfully engage those people. Finally, after aware and learn about the above topics, before getting any practice, most people don't realize they're being dragged into a conversation where no one is 100% right or wrong, haha. It's a conversation about subjects or issues that are neither white nor black but gray. Therefore, to try find reasons to totally win the other or TKO is a waste of time. It's impossible. Because if both sides have wisdom and similar knowledge and expertise in that matter, the thought of overwhelmingly win is foolhardy. If they were to win, it would probably only be by winning points, such as being able to present it eloquently clear, accurate information, polite, calm, speak slowly, no signs of anger. Plus he has a sense of humor, etc. As for the losing side because they did the opposite or they're just lost their minds completely. Again, Bee couldn't emphasize this enough. The important thing that you must do first before anything else is practicing mindfulness, remembering to stay in the present often, because that is the heart of everything you wanted to do in life. Every principle of practice. In order to make better ourselves, not being affected by rush of various emotions, being led like those ordinary people who are living their lives based on like or dislike only, instead of trying to understand its cause and effect, as what the Lord Buddha taught us to be mindful of. Therefore it's your choice to be driven by lust, greed, anger, etc. In other words, leap after your careful thoughts, not after what you just felt. So it's up to you. Choose wisely. Bee Game Boy, April 5, 2024. 2044.